Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters, and I'm honored to have with me David Fenton. Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, nice to be here.
So David, I usually like to have my guests kind of tell the world, this is seen around the world. We're up to actually 100 countries now that people are watching this
Wow.
show. Very honored about that. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm an activist and an agitator and an outsider and a dropout. Uh, and I guess you could say I'm a democratic socialist and I'm a communicator. And I've spent my career helping progressive organizations and foundations and activists hopefully do a better job of communicating with the public because clarity of message, strategy for message delivery, social change depends on this. The right focuses on this, and they tend to be very good at it. Our folks, not as much by and large. So I also have a podcast now called the Fenton Forecast, where I'm interviewing people who are activists and thinkers about what kind of future we could choose to have. And that's been just for the last few months. I also wrote a book called The Activist Media Handbook, Lessons from 50 Years as a Progressive Agitator, which I definitely am, that tries to give lessons on how to do a good job of this based on campaigns and controversies and conflicts I've been involved in. I'm basically a child of the 1960s. Timothy Leary said, turn on, tune in, and drop out. I did all of it. And I was permanently damaged, and I've never been able to heal.
Well, first of all, you don't look damaged, you don't sound damaged, and I tell you, you're being very modest about your background and the things you've been involved in. So let's kind of talk about some of those things that you have worked on. I think climate change, human rights. I know you did work with Nelson Mandela, who, by the way, is one of my idols. I mean, somebody who I just have tremendous respect for. Um, but before I talk about those individually, I want to ask this question of you. I mean, of all your experience and things you've been involved in. How would you describe the current state of America and the world?
Oh. Well, America's uh, been captured by an authoritarian con man who's brainwashed about 35% of the population, I'm afraid, although it is declining. And it has now reached levels of income inequality worse than the Gilded Age in the 1920s and the robber baron age. So the democracy is being corrupted by the billionaires and people with money, which has happened before. So America's not in a good place. I don't think it will last. I think that freedom is the American religion. Tyrants are not. So I don't think this will last. But a lot of damage is being done by some incredibly greedy people. As for the world, greed is the problem that is making it so hot in London where you are. The greed of the oil, coal, and gas companies is pretty much unprecedented in human history in terms of the impact that greed is having on today and the future. It sounds like a crazy radical statement, but it is an accurate truth that there are a small group of mostly men at these oil, coal, and gas companies who know that their products are overheating the earth and that it will destroy the economy and civilization and ruin people's health and property and collapse insurance markets and raise the price of food. They've known all of this for 50 years and they don't care. They keep lying about it. They're determined to make every last dollar from every last drop of fossil fuel on earth. The consequences be damned. So that's a level of criminality the world has never seen before because it is the survival of humanity that's actually at stake. That it sounds crazy, right? But it's actually what's happening. And they've captured the American government. And of course, they still have big sway over other governments around the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't sound crazy at all. I mean, that's just the reality. But let me ask this question, just to be devil's advocate for a second. So you're right. You have these large corporations, oil and gas companies that are trying to squeeze every penny they can out of every person around the planet. But they also they claim they're doing it on behalf of their stockholders, their shareholders, which are individuals. I mean, so where does the line drawn between them trying to do it for themselves and then trying just to do what they believe for their shareholders? I mean, do you think we need to change that system in some way?
Well, for sure. I mean, I doubt the shareholders want deceit, lies, purposeful disinformation. I mean, it's not a sustainable business model, that's for sure. Also, as for the shareholders, there are major lawsuits against these companies brought by cities and states in the United States. And those lawsuits, I believe, eventually are going to win because when the juries see the documents that prove that these fossil fuel executives and companies were told by their own scientists in the 1970s that they were going to destroy a livable climate and a livable earth, and they decided to lie about it and cover up, the juries are going to convict them and force them to disgorge restitution to help mitigate some of this damage. So I don't think that's good for their shareholders. No, I think remember, they're the people doing the stock buybacks. They're the people, I doubt the shareholders are cheering them on, corrupting politicians.
No.
I don't think so. No, I mean, sure, there's some of the stockholders are a problem, but this is mostly an issue of the executives, in my opinion. And of course, it's the system that allows that. And I'm personally not an anti-capitalist. I think that incentives, rewards are actually important in human nature and commerce, but this is way out of bounds, and we need to rein these people in. That's why I said I'm a democratic socialist, because as Europeans know, and Americans are just learning, that means appropriate regulation and rules for capitalism rather than just let them do and steal as much as they want. And it also means basic benefits for people, which we don't have in America like you have in much of Europe. America's the jungle. People don't have access to reliable health care or pensions or education. No, living wages are, not the norm. It's bad here. So yeah, the system has to change, but it doesn't mean that people can't make money. We have to raise taxes on the wealthy. They're the lowest they've ever been since the income tax was created as a graduated tax in America. So yeah, we have a lot of things we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about the climate for example, I mean, let's say that the oil companies and we change the system. I mean, listen, I'm 100% with you. We need to do away with our dependency on fossil fuels. I mean, do you think the federal government needs to do more regulating and telling states that they need to do more with alternative energies?
Yes, absolutely. The market is already rewarding clean energy. It's where most of the new investment money is going, to the sun, to the wind, to batteries, to other forms of storage, because it's now the cheapest energy. And with batteries and storage, the sun always shines and the wind always blows. So this canard that, oh, the sun doesn't work at night, that's just a propaganda trope now. So, however, the physics of our climate are such that we are in a race against time, because every molecule of methane, I think you guys over there call it methane, and
Yeah.
carbon dioxide that we put up makes the planet hotter, and the carbon dioxide stays there for centuries. And it's already too hot, and the storms are already too strong because of all the heat energy being trapped on Earth that used to be able to go out to space. We refer to it as the blanket of pollution we have put around the Earth that's trapping heat. That's what blankets do, right?
Yeah.
So, this is going to cause incredible amounts of destruction if we don't hurry up. So we do need regulation to rein in the polluters, to incentivize and make more rapid the transition to clean energy. And by the way, doing that will save everybody money. Like, I'm sitting in this house in California, and I don't use any oil, coal, and gas. We are 100% carbon free, and my electric bill is zero,
Wow, that's impressive.
which is a very nice feeling. And the loan payments for my putting up solar and batteries and weatherizing the house, heat pumps, etc., those payments are less than the utility bill used to be. And we have another advantage about the sun and the wind is that it can never go up in price. And it doesn't
True.
have to go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this,
absolutely.
this this transition is inevitable from market forces. Trump and the oil, coal, and gas companies are trying to slow it down. They won't ultimately succeed, but we don't have a lot of time to get to really bad tipping points in the Earth's climate where things get really, really difficult. You know, insurance is getting very, very expensive in parts of the US. And this is going to continue. And then that will start collapsing mortgage markets because, of course, if you don't have insurance, you can't get a mortgage.
All right. All right.
So I think this is all going to change very rapidly if we increase the understanding of this in more of the population. And unfortunately, we're not doing much of that at all.
Yeah, where do you think that responsibility lies on educating the public? I mean, clearly we have an administration. I mean, I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm not supportive of this administration. I don't support Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination. I'm spot on with you on that. And they're not doing anything to educate the public. And you're a master communicator. I mean, do you think the media has dropped the ball? Do you think parents have dropped the ball? I mean, where is this lack of education starting from?
Well, first, I would say that it was very disappointing that Obama and Biden didn't undertake to educate the public on the severity of this problem. Their political advisors kept telling them, don't go there. So that was a very big missed opportunity. Second, I would definitely blame the media. Oh my God, it's horrible. You know, the television networks still are influential, and although less than they used to be. And, you know, you could have 10 of the strongest hurricanes in history in a row, and they'll never say that it's being made stronger by burning oil, coal, and gas. They just don't go there almost ever. So then you have the online universe, which is filled with bots and disinformation and bad actors and confusion. I'm afraid Zuck's platform is propagating, and Elon's too, the worst disinformation. By the way, I call him Mark Schmuckerberg. Before allowing all this stuff. Oh my goodness. And then I would also say that the environmental groups and their foundations have not done a good enough job of prioritizing public knowledge and understanding of this issue. The environmental NGOs tend to think that just doing policy and science work is enough because, you know, it comes up with brilliant ideas, and they don't like selling those brilliant ideas. And they view that as dirty and manipulative, even if you do it truthfully, which of course you always must. Now, the business guys, they sell and confuse and focus on public opinion naturally. They learn cognitive and marketing science in school. So it's a terrible mismatch. So I would put the blame on the politicians, the media, the tech platforms, but also I think that the NGO community shares in some of this responsibility.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. So let's go from climate to human rights. I mean, because I also think that, yeah, you talk about education. I mean, freedom and democracy are things that no one really talks about. We have a president of the United States that he's the first U.S. president in modern time not to talk about the importance of freedom and democracy when he's addressing the United Nations. I mean, it's just outrageous. I mean, what he is doing turn America, as you were saying, into an authoritarian state. I mean, that's just absolutely what's happening. But human rights, do you think we have a human rights issue in the United States only, or do you think it's a global issue, or where do you think the biggest issues associated with human rights are that we need to talk about?
Oh, it's a global issue. I mean, look at what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs and to Tibet and to their own people. Um, I mean, look at what happens with repression, all over the world. Um, what's disappointing about the United States is that we used to do a better job of this, and now, the anti-immigrant fervor that Trump whips up for his own benefit, and the crackdowns and the violence from ICE, the detention camps. I mean, the separation of children from their families at in these detention camps and then through deportations, the denial of normal asylum processes that are a basic universal human right. I'm not saying there wasn't an immigration problem. The border was chaotic. So yeah, I think that respect for human rights is on the decline again. Now, all these things in history, as you know, are oscillations. There's cycles. They all go up and down. We have periods of repression followed by less repression. We have periods of great wealth inequality followed by more wealth equality. I mean, that's always going to be true, but it's not a good situation right now.
And so, do you think that these midterm elections in the United States, I mean, which most people believe the Democrats will make strides, I mean, would you really see this as a Democrat Republican issues that if we have more Democrats in Congress and in the White House, that it will help solve some of these issues, or is it not that simplistic?
Both. you know, Certainly a Democratic administration would be better than this. However, we have a structural problem, which is the campaign financing system in our country, otherwise known as right now pretty much the worst corruption in the entire world. And, Democrats are affected by that too. And, just look at the influence of AIPAC, the Israeli lobby here in the United States. And by the way, I'm Jewish, but I do not support the Netanyahu genocide and apartheid, which is technically and legally what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, no, I think it would certainly be better. But ultimately, what history shows is that it's mass movements and public opinion that as it changes and gets organized and focused, that makes the politicians do what we need. Now, I think it's very likely we're on the cusp of a very big one because artificial intelligence is likely to throw a lot of people out of work, and they're not just going to sit by and starve.
Yeah.
They're going to rebel. And you see a little bit of a beginning potentially of this in this rebellion against the data centers in the US, which is, by the way, a cross-partisan issue. There are plenty of Republicans upset about it. So, I'm not strictly a partisan. I'm going to have on my podcast soon, a really interesting Republican thinker who used to be a big climate denier and has changed his mind. And, I've been watching former Republican Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah, Bill Frist. Yeah, good guy.
So he's the chair of the Nature Conservancy right now, and he's speaking out very forcefully about climate change and health and fossil fuels and health. He's really forceful. The New York Times just did a whole profile of him. So to me, it's inevitable that Republicans are going to deal with climate change. The weather will force everybody to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, this administration has to change. I mean, one of my concerns is that, Congress has abdicated the responsibility to be a check and balance on the executive branch. We need a wholesale change. More people willing to stand up to this president in the executive branch. It's definitely a huge issue. And by the way, I spot on agree with you about Netanyahu and what's going on because most of my work is, global, and I do a lot of work in the Middle East, and it's outrageous what's happening there. Um, so let's talk a little bit about, first of all, you were head of PR for Rolling Stone magazine, right?
Oh, that's a long time ago. But when I was 25 years old in 1977, I became the head of public relations for Rolling Stone. Yes.
Oh, wow, wow. So I guess I mean, so you've really been in public relations, and so this book you wrote, tell us a little bit about this book.
Yeah, I've been doing PR for causes basically for 55 years. Uh, so the book is called The Activist Media Handbook, Lessons from 50 Years as a Progressive Agitator. It's it's a combination memoir and lessons for activists based on my own experiences of how to communicate effectively for social change. For example, progressives like complex messages, and those don't work. You have to have simple messages. Progressives don't like repeating themselves. Well, the cognitive science is clear. Only repetition of simple messages changes the brain and public opinion. We may hate Make America Great Again, but that shit works.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And another lesson is you need to speak to the heart first, not the head only. And progressives and policy wonks of all kinds, they like to just speak to the head. That doesn't work either. So I've attempted to distill this, and there's some pretty funny stories in there, including about some big mistakes I've made, and also the highlight of my working career, which was I had the honor of working directly with Nelson Mandela for a few years and spending quite a bit of time with him, and that he's the only saint I ever met.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's impressive. I mean, he was a good man. I mean, listen, I never had the opportunity, the honor to meet him, but do you believe that? Let me ask you this question. It's interesting about Nelson Mandela. In today's society, with social media the way it is, do you think for like someone like Nelson Mandela and his imprisonment, do you think it would have helped him get out sooner, or do you think it would have not helped him in any way? Because I'm trying to understand, just from somebody like you, the impact of social media. I mean, if it, is it something that's really positive for social change?
Well, nothing's only positive, as you know, and nothing's only negative. So,
Very true. Very true.
th- but that's a very interesting question I had never thought about. Uh, so, in the mass media era, where everybody, watched two or three television networks, um, and where information was mediated by editors, unlike today, the world could together focus on a cause like freeing Nelson Mandela. I mean, in that sense, the lack of shared mass media or the decline of it might make that harder. That's true. It's possible. As for social media, you know, this form of completely unregulated social media, where the tech barons have no legal responsibility for anything on their platform, which is the current state of affairs. Yeah. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have gotten that if we had this kind of social media. Now, this is not the only kind of social media we could have. We could change the law and make Schmuckerberg liable for the bullshit on his platform and the bullying and the racism and the falsehoods. Do you know he even so-called Meta, which is actually his failure because that never, I guess, meta materialized. They 10 or 15% of their revenue comes from phony commerce sites on Facebook. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. No.
Oh, yeah. And I was the victim of one of them. There was a clothing brand, and I thought it was a real site and ordered something, and it was nonsense. It was just fraud. And there's tons of that on there, on Instagram and Facebook. So if we change the law, make them responsible, and put in some basic rules like we used to have in this country, and you still have in parts of Europe, certain uh, boundaries for broadcasting in particular. We used to have the fairness doctrine and the equal time doctrine. If we applied some of that to the internet in ways that were respectful of the First Amendment, as those doctrines were repeatedly upheld by the courts to be, then sure, I think social media could be mostly great. Now it's a toss up. There are periods when activists around the world use social media successfully to organize and overthrow governments. We've seen that. And this is why, Iran turned off the internet. But also it brought us QAnon and conspiracy theories and parallel alternative phony universes for well-meaning people. It's despicable in my view.
Yeah, and well, I don't, and it also is complicated by the fact you were talking about AI earlier, is that I go online these days and you see certain AI videos and newspapers and headlines that clearly are well, you don't know they're fabricated. So, it's gotten to the point where you don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. And just in normal everyday people like my son, I mean, he's able to create stuff with AI and he's not an expert on it, but imagine these people who are experts and what they can do. And if you're right, if we don't police these things, if you don't regulate these things, I mean, there are just bad people in the world. That's just the reality, and they're going to take advantage of it.
You're a mainstream Republican, right?
Well, yeah, I'm recovering Republican. I'll put it that way.
Okay,
Yes.
or mainstream conservatives, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you believe that in sports you should have rules and umpires, right?
Absolutely.
So we need that in the economy. And we used to have more of it. You'll never get it perfect, by the way, of course. In the wavelength, in the spectrum of too much regulation and too little, you'll never get it perfect, but you have to try.
Well, exactly. It's like I always say democracy is messy. I mean, these things, there's nothing perfect. But you're right. You can't just sit there and say there are people out there who say, well, we're not going to pass a law because it's not going to be perfect and we can't deal with every issue. Well, at least start the process. I mean, we're our country's 250 years old. It was a grand experiment. The experiment continues on. We just don't stop. And no, that's my problem, is that too many people are passing the buck. Too many people are just not standing up for what is right for our country.
Yeah. Remember John F. Kennedy wrote that book, Profiles in Courage?
Yes.
He'd have fewer applicants today.
Well, absolutely. I mean, everyone is scared of, the big Trump or whoever. I mean, it's and I run into that almost every single day. It's just disgusting what's happening. But I do agree with you about about many things. But one is that America is resilient. I mean, it's like our institutions, I believe very strongly, will survive. They're being tested, no doubt now, but I believe that they will survive, knock on wood. And whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or whoever's in the White House or in Congress, I mean, the reality is we do have, it's not perfect, but we do have a very good system of government. And I do think that we will prevail, but one last thing.
We need to make some changes. We need to reduce money in politics. We need to change the Supreme Court. It's outrageous. We need to take setting congressional districts out of partisan hands. I mean, there's some things that really have to be done. We need to bust up some monopolies like we used to. I'm confident we will again, as long as we deal with climate change so that we're here to do it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that when years ago, I don't, you don't hear as much about climate change as you used to, and that's just really sad. And it's just, and it is a Republican Democratic, it's a nonpartisan issue. It is something that affects all of us. I mean, I'm sitting here, as you said, in London, and I'm sweating to death because of, no air conditioning, and it's just outrageous. So listen, David, you are a phenomenal guest, and I have tremendous respect for the things you've done, and we need more people like you. We do, and whatever influences you can have on the younger generation, to help them not bury their head in the sand. I mean, I think that's a step in the right direction, and I applaud you for your efforts.
That's why I'm doing my podcast, The Fenton Forecast, so that young people can see that we've been in bad periods before and how we got out of them.
Yeah, and we need that because, like even my son, I love him to death. But the reality is, I mean, a lot of young people say, "Ah, it's not your responsibility. You shouldn't worry about that. Just let somebody else deal with it." Well, you know what? If everyone thinks that way, then no one's going to deal with it. And anyway, I applaud what you're doing. So sadly, we're out of time, David. I appreciate you being on Around the World with Dane Waters, and a good luck with your podcast. And by the way, if people want to listen to your podcast, how do they find it?
The Fenton Forecast is on all major podcast platforms. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, on Substack, but it's pretty much everywhere.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best. Anyway, let's take a quick break from Around the World with Dane Waters, and we'll be back here in a second. Thanks a lot.